Szanowni Państwo,
Ladies and gentlemen, we are starting the most important event of the Polish chemistry industry, the 10th Congress Polish Chemistry, organized by the Polish Chamber of Chemical Industry. We are beginning. Dr. Tomasz. Mr. Chairman, the 10th Congress Polish Chemistry is the leading topic, sustainability, development and future. Future is an atypical topic for chemistry, AI. Should we be afraid? Well, I'm not afraid of any technology per se. I'm afraid of people who have this technology in hands, uneducated, unable to use it, and irresponsible. So I'm not afraid of AI. But it's entering our life, so we'll see what it will bring to us. Let's go to the Congress. AI begins to be present in our life on a daily basis. It's functioning. Oh, it's been there for a long time. But in chemistry, can it become a support or a risk? Because we will rely on it and will forget what our feeling of the situation is. That's why I mentioned education, because it seems to be even more important than in the past. Every new instrument provides new opportunities, but it can also generate threats. That's why it's important to understand what AI is and how to use it, because without it, we can get into a trap. Okay, we'll see what it is, how we should interpret it. Ladies and gentlemen, a typical introduction. 10th Congress of Polish Chemistry. Dr. Tomasz Rożek, popularizer of science. Science, I like it, foundation. And as people, we are starting to think whether this leading topic, AI, can be for us, chemistry industry. Support or a challenge, threat, fear, or maybe the other way around, something that's not typical. The floor is yours. Dr. Tomasz Rożek. Welcome everybody. We walked. AI would not walk with us hand in hand. I have to remember two things. So time restraints, and then second of all, I have to say that there is a debate in my family. My mom is a chemist and I'm a physicist. So if I want to fight with her a little bit, I say, well, you know what? Chemistry is part of physics. And then my mom is a little bit upset. So I'm not going to mention that here. AI, a huge topic, but a topic that's been present here for years, that came out to the forefront, maybe a little bit unexpectedly, last November when ChatGPT was shown to the world. During my presentation, I'll try to show what AI or algorithms that are called artificially intelligent are different from ordinary algorithms, traditional algorithms. I'll start. I think I drove AI, not Tesla. 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I get into a car that is autonomous. We drove around to Warsaw. The car did everything that the driver would do, maybe even better because it respected the rules. Then we went out of Warsaw. There was a bend, there was a pothole in the road, and the owner said, Oh, I think that a few weeks back the car would stop in front of his pothole, but I think it has learned by now. And it made me wonder, because learning for me is closely related to intelligence. So I asked him, what does it mean? What do you mean that it's learned? And then he said, well, you know what? Once a day they communicate with a cloud. So the car must have driven this way, registered it, and uploaded to the cloud. And every new car that gets it from the cloud knows. Knowledge, that's another word that's hard to define. What is AI? When I started to think about it, I figured out that it is similar to other keywords. Everyone knows what they mean until you need to define it. We know it intuitively, what they are related to, until we have to define them. So when I started writing down what intelligence is for me it's a skill, ability to analyze what we receive from the environment. It's definitely someone who is intelligent can find himself or herself in a new situation, not the situation that they've already been in. So a new situation. Based on certain analogies, such a person can design or build an image of a situation. Capacity for learning, for problem solving. So when I started writing down, this car already had it. It could analyze everything that was around him and is around him. It could adapt to a new situation. We can't even think that a programmer will describe every single combination or a situation of weather, cars, passers-by, traction, traffic. So, in spite of that, the car could drive efficiently around the town. Whether it has the capacity for learning, the owner said it has learned. But is it comparable to our learning, human learning? Problem solving, in a sense, yes, because it drove from point A to point B. Getting into this car, I had this feeling that I'm conducting an experiment. I do it quite often. I'm a physicist. But I wasn't convinced whether the device that makes decisions for me will be something that I like. So I approach it from this experimental way. So this curiosity lasted for about a minute. I didn't feel in this car as if I were in a place where something makes decisions for me. But I felt well taken care of, and I was surprised by that feeling. So what is AI? When are we going to conduct a dialogue with this artificial entity? What do we mean when we say artificial intelligence? There are a lot of questions about that. Some things are unknown to us, some things are known to us already. They can allow us to facilitate our work, fasten certain processes. We give them a task, and they perform it. They won't do anything that is outside of its competences.
A komputerowy program do przeglądania internetu nie odtworzy muzyki. Pojawiają się jednak znacznie bardziej skomplikowane programy. Ich bazą są algorytmy.
More complex algorithms. that are
Takie pudełko
a puzzle for scientists, like a puzzle, a huge puzzle.
mają powstawać połączenia między informacjami. Przykład. Taki
An example?
algorytm może proponować tytuły filmów, które spodobają się
The
drugiej
algorithm
osobie. Musi się
can
poznać
propose the titles of movies,
filmy osoba już obejrzała,
but it is based on the films that the person already watched.
pudełko wypluwa filmowe propozycje.
And this box will come up with those proposals.
I jakie z niego wychodzą. Jednak to, jak informacje były
But
łączone ze sobą,
how this information was connected and processed
to wszystko jest tak złożone, że
is very, very complex. And therefore this process, we can't follow this process. So a black box, what is it? An engineer is constructing the walls and we put data inside. Building these walls, we can ask questions or the questions can be asked later on. A group of people who produce GPT chat didn't know what kind of questions we'll ask today. They built this box, they put data, and the processes inside are pretty much mysterious. Can something unexpected happen there? Yeah, that's why we build it, to get answers that we would not get otherwise without this box. Each time when I try to define AI, each story ends or begins with a slogan. It's something that analyzes big sets of data, but in a different manner from our brain and from the software that we've had so far. Because it analyzes and draws conclusions, it can find patterns there. Whether it's the future? No. Things that I don't like. And then I say, okay, which one of you use it? So it's not only the question of Spotify that is learning based on my behaviors and suggests certain offers, but everything that we have on our phones. AI is not the future. AI is the present. It's only us who think that this phone is still analogous and algorithms will be somewhere in the future. It's not true. It's today. A few years back, there was an experiment conducted in the United States. Databases of Santa Cruz Municipal Office were combined. New data was not generated, but the city only had the data that was used. And then there was an algorithm written whose aim was to show the probability of appearance of crime, of all kinds of crime, on the map of a city. Police officer in the precinct had this map, and in different colors he saw the areas based on the data provided by algorithms. So he or she could see where there is a bigger probability of committing a crime. When there was a higher probability, he would send police patrols there. And the crime decreased by several percent. Data analysis also means medicine. We are at the point today where data of analysis of financial or strategic data is that important, but AI in medicine has the biggest funds. It's from 2022. It's much more than in any other sector. Identifying images, finding irregularities that the radiologist could not find. That's AI in medicine. Whether it's gonna repel the doctors? No, it's just another tool. It's just another instrument, like ultrasound, right? And it's not only the question of imaging made by MRI, it's oftentimes identifying emotions, psychological states. There are algorithms that can much faster than any doctor identify an upcoming depression, Alzheimer, or Parkinson's disease with a probability of more than 90%. It's years before the first symptoms appear. This is very, very amazing. What's more, in the past, new technologies were related to huge financial resources. So, for example, when we thought about MRI, when we think about ultrasound scanners, so the first devices cost a lot. Here, it's operation in the cloud. Everyone can have access to it if you have a cell phone. In your discipline, analysis of chemical particles, there is an experiment conducted by MIT scientists, so one of the best technical universities in the world, created the algorithm for analysis of chemical particles to try to find out whether we can find new antibiotics. You could teach me about that, how big a problem it is to find antibiotics because of long procedures, complex analyses. Unless we teach algorithm based on the particles that we already know and we put it to the database of, let's say, 100 million of particles. After 3 days, it's selected out of those 100 million particles, 23 particles that can be then researched or analyzed or examined by a person. Data analysis also means analyzing data about human beings. In China, there are those investigative systems, surveillance systems that identify, for example, faces and put them together with police databases. And it pertains not only to criminals, but also political enemies. That can be conducted to, for example, surveillance systems, CCTV, and the system of human control can be designed in that way. Something that is unprecedented. And that also means data analysis, analysis of big data. So, am I afraid of this technology? No, but I'm afraid of people who use this technology in such a manner. Am I afraid of nuclear power? No. I'm a nuclear physicist by profession, but I'm afraid of people who want to throw a nuclear bomb on the city. I'm not afraid of clean energy or energy for atom energy for chemistry and chemical industry. I was in China, so this is just the screen from a YouTube material. I was not allowed to take photos there. It was an experimental school, and kids had those bands on their heads with diodes. And if the child was out of focus, the diode would blink red. And if it was focused, the child would have a green diode. And if I mention this, people are usually appalled. And then I think, no, it's a very good technology, but we have to use it in a responsible manner. Because every one of us had a situation when, in maths or physics classes, they got lost. Because we were sick, or you were absent from previous classes and you couldn't follow the teacher, or because a friend sitting next to you, right, was disturbing you. There are different reasons. When we are lost once, it's hard to make up for it. Everyone is different. Every one of us may need a different way of explaining. The teacher who sees when we are focused and the moment when we get lost is a teacher who has a very powerful tool in their hands. At the same time, in the very same China, every parent has access to this data online. And I'm not in favor of it. Maybe, as a parent, maybe it would be good to know it. A few pieces of information. Deloitte. Until 2030, AI will generate 15% of GDP of the United States. Hardly imaginable numbers. Stanford University. Until 2033, AI will increase European and American GDP by $7 billion. American government data until 2030, and AI in the public sector only. So ministries, offices will save 1.3 billion hours of work of officers. It will change the job market, the system of work. It's undeniable. Do you think it's the peak of its possibilities? No, it's just the open door. What's going to be tomorrow? I have no clue. But I know that the key element in this technology and the biggest challenge is how to teach software to make decisions, because that's why we construct them. A few years back, there was a deadly crash with self-driving Uber. A woman entered the road right in front of a car. The woman died, right, in this car accident. And then the headlines said that this was the victim of AI. I would say it's more the victim of physics, because if a car is driving, whether it's driven by AI or a human being, doesn't matter. The fact that AI was driving the car actually raised these opportunities of her survival. So how to teach them morality, and that's a challenge. At MIT a few years back, they created a questionnaire, a survey with questions related to the worldviews, morality, ethics. And the idea was that if enough of people answer those questions, we may have this global wisdom, ethics. And then it's enough to connect algorithms, and then they'll make ethical decisions. Large numbers of people answered those questions from different sides of the world, different cultures, but it provoked me to think, since when the majority knows what's moral and what's not? It doesn't work that way. If majority says that it's good, it doesn't mean it's good. In Poland, we live in a state that has been experienced by two totalitarian systems, right? And they were the people were elected by the majorities. So designing such a survey and voting, because this is what it was, is not a good direction. And it's a very important question, not only in the context of autonomous vehicles. This question a few years ago was this philosophical question. Today, this question is a question that hampers, to a certain extent, the development of certain autonomous technologies because we don't know the answers. We don't know who should be responsible for accidents of autonomous cars. We don't know how to solve it. We don't know how to solve the question of proprietary rights when they are inspired. The algorithms are inspired by someone else's work. We don't know how to solve these problems with ownership right to music, to images. We don't know answers to these questions, and without those answers, this technology in a way will not be able to develop. What was the first invention of man? Stone that was used, for example, for hunting. What's gonna be our final invention? Maybe the real AI? Its birth will mean that we'll become more intelligent creatures. Maybe it will explain a lot of mysteries that we've been facing for a long time, and the life on Earth will change drastically. Hopefully it'll also be friendly to us. Most of the scientists think about the future in gloomy terms. Speaking about civilizations, right, and the past, and the civilizations that got lost because they were weaker. US, Russia, China. Who's going to be the leader in this race? Whether it will open the door to a new military conflict. Is this what the future is going to be like? Nobody knows it. I don't know it either, but I know one thing. Some of the directions that we've already taken cannot be changed until we face the wall. I don't wish that for you. I'm just saying that the key thing that's becoming more important is to learn and to try to understand and to be aware of what's happening, because AI is a tool, an instrument that may be the most powerful, with the most influence on our reality, the influence that we can't imagine today. We opened the door, and the light from the hall is leading or giving light to part of our room. But we are at the threshold, and we don't know what's behind this door. Whether there is a big room or a small room, whether there is a library with insurmountable numbers of books, we don't know it. But walking through this threshold, it is important to be aware of what we know and how we can use it in a responsible manner with a benefit for all of us. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear viewers online, the 10th Polish Chemistry Congress, we can actually go back to first editions. So going back to June, 10 years ago, not so far from here in Puławy, we started the first Polish Chemistry Congress. We haven't realized at that time that it would become such important, the most important event for the chemistry industry in Poland and also in this part of Europe. For those of you who remember the first event, you probably also remember the first important point or item on the agenda, La Grande Mosquitos. I'm sorry for that. Right, so let's leave mosquitoes behind, but I hope that you remember those. Yeah, there are a few who do. Of course, the Congress itself was more important than those mosquitoes. But later on, we held the Congress in different places, in different venues all over Poland. During the pandemic time, we went online, and last year we came back to meet face to face. So it's more than 8,000 participants, a number of different seminars and discussion panels, topics of different relevance, about competitiveness, human resources, development, financing. We covered probably all the most important topics with you. But we are here now in a totally different reality, indeed a very different one. If you remember, we started this Congress with roll-ups, posters. Today it's much more professional. We are online in social media. It's easier for us to communicate, and it's easier to reach other people with our content. So our Congress is alive not just for the 2 days of the conference, but actually it begins before the event and continues after. This Congress, which is our 10th anniversary, which is about the sustainable development and the future. Probably you have seen that the last years introduced many changes, dynamic changes, and probably you've experienced how we could adapt to it, how the Polish chemical industry could cope with different hardships that we had, such as economic crisis or the pandemic, but also other less important crises, like, for instance, the energy crisis last year in connection with the war. But today we are in a situation where we need to look forward, look at the different regulations in Poland or in the European Union. We have to face it somehow. It's not just the issue of the fact that there are there, but there are even more. So we have to think how to cope with them. And the Congress is actually devoted to that as well. We want to provide you with a possibility, with a forum for discussion, to look for solutions and think about future moves and steps. So, what is the future of our chemical industry in this very difficult reality, difficult world? What would the next quarter year, the next half year look like? How to change today's value chains? What elements, what factors to consider? Is artificial intelligence, which we discussed just before, is it something that maybe will influence a chemical industry? The future of every economy is non-existent without chemistry and chemical industry. The 10th Chemical Industry Congress will evaluate some new aspects, also in previous editions. We were gathering in different venues. Once we even were in Wieliczka, salt mine. We try to give you different forms of interaction, different topics. I won't wait until the end of this Congress to thank all the members of the team, organizing team, for their preparation. I would like to encourage you to applaud the organizers as well. And now we invite Karolina Król, Undersecretary of State to take the floor. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure for me to be with you online. I would like to say a few words about chemical industry, chemical industry, which is one of the key sectors for the Polish economy, but also other European economies. It's the basis for the development of other sectors. Polish producers implement modernizing programs. They try to adapt to many different regulations in Europe. Among others, implementing regulations on cost efficiency and resource efficiency. The implementations were a bit disturbed by the war in Ukraine. Many resources, including energy resources, were not transferred to Poland from the east. Moreover, the chemical industry is facing many European regulation challenges, which are successively adapted to the national legal order. For instance, we are talking about Fit 455 or different regulations on circular economy, the Green Order, and the strategy on sustainable chemical materials. In 2022, the strategy on sustainable chemical materials regulates the actions that must be taken to protect environment against toxic chemical materials. At the same time, it is aimed at protecting our planet for the future generations. The strategy envisages also the avoidance of the most dangerous and detrimental chemical substances. All the industrial chemicals must be used in the safest way possible, but also in a sustainable manner. Such an approach obliges the industry to be in line with those regulations, also at the stage of implementation and preparation of projects. So the value change must be taken also into account if it comes to protecting environment, and I'm referring here to the EU regulation, which encourage us to create special paths for sustainable economic growth. In the Ministry of Technological Development, we encourage all the actions taken by the European Commission that are aimed at increasing the safety level and health of all the European Union citizens. But of course, what is important is at the same time the competitiveness of all enterprises, especially small and medium enterprises, which to a large degree determine the level of attractiveness of the European Union economy. At our ministry, for a couple of years, we have taken a number of solutions and actions to implement the circular economy ideas. And of course, we are following all the regulations imposed by the European institutions. One of such projects is the European Union regulation on eco-design, which sets certain criteria for the for designing of new products. Among others, we take into account the ability, the capacity to use certain products, the safety of the products, as well as the content of the products that are recycled, regeneration of products, and high quality recycling, which is linked to lowering the carbon footprint. The implementation of this regulation will certainly be a very important, a very great challenge for Polish entrepreneurs. It will be also connected to substantial financial outlays. The necessity to implement monitoring and new reporting mechanisms. The costs connected with that should increase the competitiveness of Polish businesses. Circular economy is also aimed at providing the products on the market that are of better quality. The so-called green transformation, industry is of key importance. But of course, the European Union imposes more and more regulations on that. In fact, we need to look for compromises. We are trying to do that, looking for them at the EU level, also looking for the advantages so that every country can benefit from that, not only a limited group of those. We want all the countries to have the same opportunities. As a consequence, all the legislative projects at the European Union level should be created for the benefit of the employers and of the countries. EU regulations could guarantee safe management of chemical substances and also the implementation of safe alternatives where possible. This is also connected to simplifying administrative procedures. The European Union should also take into account the geopolitical situation and the financial possibilities in given countries, also the local conditions in given regions. So once again, I would like to invite all of you to this conference, and I wish you a very fruitful Congress. And now we would like to invite our strategic partner, the representative of BASF Poland. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm really pleased that BASF Poland once again became one of the strategic partners of the Congress. I'm really happy because I think that this poses a great value for us as the whole chemical industry to meet here together and to talk about the problems of our industry, looking for the possible solutions to them. As we've said before, there are many challenges, and we are at the point when the future of our industry is being decided. Just as Minister Król or Director Zieliński has said, The challenges are connected also with the great regulatory pressure, along with the topic of competitiveness. We have to see that Europe is becoming less competitive compared to other continents, which is very important in our sector. This is a great threat for the raw materials from other continents, especially from Asia. It's worth discussing those issues. Probably you also feel responsibility for the development and sustainable development and the future of our industry. A great responsibility, this is also a great responsibility for employees, thousands of workplaces that we create. It's worth sharing best practices and ideas in this area. So this Congress is actually the platform for that. I hope that we'll use this opportunity wisely so that we can come up with a common front. Thank you. And now we would like to invite a representative of our another strategic partner, PKN ORLEN. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm very pleased to open the Congress of the Polish chemical industry on behalf of PKN ORLEN. Ladies and gentlemen, PKN ORLEN is the leader of the changes appearing in the Polish economy, also in the chemical industry. We are also leaders in a green transition process. So in a moment, I was assured by our CEO that the energy transformation is very important, and it cannot be completed without transitioning to green energy. In its strategy, PKN ORLEN wants to invest billions of zlotys, that is 120 million zlotys, into the investment in the green sector. It's very important that in this period, in the period until 2030, we will implement the investment of the first MSR in Poland. It's not the only investment that derives from our strategy. We also invest in photovoltaics, offshore wind farms, biofuels, hydrogen as the modern fuel. This is our perspective. PKN ORLEN is also implementing the biggest investment in Europe, which is the olefin complex. Together with its partner, the biggest concern, Saudi Aramco, but also SABIC, we will implement this olefin complex construction. But together we will implement some other projects as well. This is very important from the perspective of the development of our sector and the implementation of new technologies that we will use. I would also like to point out that PKN ORLEN, as the first one in Central and Eastern Europe, published the energy policy and strategy. Our response in this area, in the area of the development of business and raising the awareness of people is very important. I wish you very fruitful debates so that you could come up with the solutions for the challenges that we are facing. Thank you. And now we would like to invite the representative of our strategic partner PKO Bank Polski. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are very pleased to be once again invited by the Polish Chemical Industry Chamber to participate in the Congress. This edition is also something to be proud of, because we have been present with the Congress from the very first edition. Partnership is something that we take really seriously, especially when we develop our partnership with corporate clients and also industrial sectors. We do it not only in the time of prosperity, but also in crisis situations. For us, this is very important. If it comes to the chemical industry, all most important entities present here in this auditorium or maybe online are our clients who could count on our support. The economic crisis is trying to creep in for years, so some business entities are having troubles in recent years, among others also due to war in Ukraine. The topics that we will be raising, are very important. So once again, I would like to congratulate the organizers for organizing this Congress, and I wish you a fruitful conference. Special thanks to the partners of the 10th Polish chemistry industry. Our strategic partners are BASF Polska, Polska, PKO Polska, ABB Polska, Anvil, Czech, KGHM Polska, Syntos, Arcadis, Technological Group Asada, Kleenex, Kancelaria Dentos, Dow, Ecobin, NLX Poland, Eurotainer, Fluor, Go and Management, Hollywell, Hyundai Engineering, Inno Energy, Kinetics Technology, Program Trust and Responsibility, PKN South, Gdańsk Refinery, Tapflo Polska, among others. And now the first debate. The moderator of the debate will be Barbara Oksińska, journalist from Business Insider, and the topic of our debate is the Polish chemistry, sustainable development today and tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Barbara Oksińska. I'm representing Business Insider. I would like to invite the panelists. Those are Katarzyna Byczkowska, President of Management Board BASF Polska, Artur, Head of Strategic Client Office PKO Bank Polski, Karol, Wolff, PKN ORLEN, and Tomasz Zieliński, President of the Board of the Polish Chamber of Chemical Industry.
When I talk to representatives of heavy industry, they often say that the threats for industry in Poland that we have nowadays is unprecedented. So I'm interested in your opinions. How is it in your branch, in your area? Because you need to transform, change, develop in a sustainable manner, but be competitive as well at the same time on a global scale. So the Congress, a remembrance, a few years back we talked mainly about the sustainable development, whether it's going to be a threat or an opportunity. The opinions were divided, and now we are in this reality. It's already happening. But at the same time, we need to note how the environment is changing, how a lot of things have changed. So, how or whether climatic policy, sustainable development, and the ratio, the pace of changes makes sense, looking at the costs of transformation and geopolitical threats, dangers that we have. So let's start with Mr. Zieliński, if I may. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you can hear me well. It's a hard question because of the environment and the pace of changes, because it may turn out that there will be new changes soon and it will be hard to address them. But we should get used to that. Whether sustainable development makes sense today? Well, it's hard to escape it. So it's not the question whether it makes sense, but how to implement all the principles to make it efficient. So what do we need in such an area that is complex of chemical industry to implement this sustainable development? And at the same time, so that we could be able to achieve goals and be competitive. It's a hard issue, also owing to the pace of changes. A few years back, we were talking about potential directions. We could design different perspectives, but COVID changed the perception of the pace of changes completely. Now we are a few years ahead and we don't have time in the light of, for example, competition from Far Asia, that we could have space to create or design plans for directions, where to go. No, we don't have this time. We have to act, we have to implement the goals now. Sustainable development is hardly definable. It has a lot of forms, but in chemical industry, it will touch upon the whole industry. It touches upon suppliers, semi-products, resources, all kinds of processes, support systems, AI. And finally, we, as the sector, will have to provide most of the products. So sustainable development is taking place here. But we don't have time, and we always talked about time aspect. So looking at what's happening in this difficult environment, for Europe to keep competitiveness and rebuild it and its participation in the global market, sustainability is a tool to win with other markets, with other regions. We are winning, not necessarily with quality, but with a certain consistency of a chain of values. And we protect the common market to show to others that they need to adapt to our conditions. A hot thing to face. What does it look like in practice? How to develop in a sustainable manner and remain competitive? BASF, ORLEN, the two companies. Do you see this potential risk of losing competitiveness, and how do you adjust your green strategies to that? Welcome, everybody. If we talk about strategies and adapting it to sustainable development, in ORLEN Group, we have either a challenge or a privilege that the scope of our activities is very broad because it works within the whole chain in gas sector, petrochemistry, distribution, energy. So looking at this plethora of our sectors or portfolio of our business lines, we are wondering where to allocate more resources and where to allocate less resources, which lines to support, and we change, we adjust from oil and gas to energy sector because when we talk about sustainable development and challenges that we see for chemical industry, two main areas can be enumerated. On the one hand, decarbonization. Decarbonization, first and foremost, of energy sources that we use in our production factories. So renewable energy sources for our needs and for the market needs. And the second area that is of importance is important to implement sustainable development in ORLEN Group, and likewise is this circular economy, recycling and use of resources that are recycled. So, looking from the perspective of strategies and management of business lines, we are trying to invest in businesses that we see have a potential for the future, businesses that seem prospective in the context of the future, where we will have to reduce emissions. An example, an anecdote, during our board meeting on the 21st June, there is a suggestion to change the name from PKN ORLEN, so refinery industry ORLEN, into ORLEN itself. We are getting rid of this refinery part in the name, which testifies to our willingness to change, to move from oil and gas sector, whose future is probably terminated, to change and into energy production. How about BASF? For a long time, we have been investing in sustainable future, if I may call it that way. Our logo for a long time is BASF. We are creating chemistry for sustainable future, and we trust, we believe that there is no return from green transformation, and it's the only way. The question, though, arises how, not whether it's worth. I think that the basic topic for BASF and the whole sector is the question of energy, green, clean energy, or lack of it, because we know that Europe has a problem with that. Europe is a net importer of energy itself, and the amount of green energy that we have is not enough to provide for our needs. And taking into account chemical industry, we need a lot more. So the basic topic, the basic issue, the basic problem is to ensure the adequate amount of green energy at competitive prices. So one of the key investments that we are implementing right now are investments in green renewable energy. Examples: we have one of the biggest investments, windmills, offshore windmills. In Holland, in the Netherlands, I think it's the biggest wind farm in Europe, maybe on a global scale as well. We also invest in photovoltaic farms. We also have a few other wind farms, solar energy, particularly in the states, in the countries, in the regions where this sun exposure is highest. Another topic, another example. Chemical industry uses a lot of energy, but also emits CO2 more than, for example, the production plant of television sets. So another issue that we face, and another element, is how to limit this emission. There are many technologies that can be implemented, and we are there to implement such technologies. One of this technology is cracker oven stoves that emitted, with cracking processes with high temperatures, emitted a lot of CO2. These cracker oven stoves can be heated electrically without the use of fossil fuels. And if that energy is green energy, then this emission is really low, verging on zero emission. So that's one of the examples of solutions. There are many of them. The question is how to implement them in a competitive manner, so to keep competitiveness, how to rescale it so that it can work on a larger scale, not only in the lab. As far as sustainability is concerned, apart from restricting those emissions, we also look at the products themselves. We have a plethora of products that are called accelerators. It's over 30% of our products that are either neutral or have a positive impact on the environment. So in our strategy, we are trying to increase the sale of these products. So chemical concerns are also going to become producers of green energy. Well, someone has to be. Yes, someone has to be. You also have a global perspective as a representative of a global concern. Is Europe, regarding the problems, is Europe, who wants to be the leader of transformation in the world, is a place where chemical industry is locating and will be locating their investments? It's hard to answer this question. Europe is in a turning point, difficult moment, as the previous speaker said. So, starting with energy, we lack this energy, we need to buy it in a less competitive manner than, for example, the US, that have energy for themselves. So competitiveness of industry based on energy, for example, gas. Gas prices decreased, but last year the gas prices were 6 times more expensive in Europe than in the US, which led to a lot of issues, problems, right, in different sectors, like, for example, companies that produce fertilizers. Again, the question is what's going to happen in the winter with gas prices. It had a large influence on the whole sector in Europe, not only in Poland, and according to the data that we have, the increase in production in 2022 was -6%, so the sector was not developing. In Germany, it was -12%, the worst situation on the market. And the increase in production all over the world is about 2%. So in Europe, it was shrinking. Perspectives for the future? I hope that the sector will survive, and we are such a big, important market that we won't disappear and that we won't move our production plants to Asia on a mass scale. I think that certain lines or products will most probably be moved to Asia. So there are certain areas that can't be kept here. But our role is to think about this. Green energy, for example. If we can increase our energy potential faster, it will help with competitiveness. Second of all, what we do in our strategy, we try to invest in areas and products that are with potential for the future, like, for example, batteries, electromobility. So these are the areas that have more potential than other products. And I also hope that, and I believe, I trust that there are opportunities for the sector. And looking at what we do as BASF, we have investments outside of Europe, but Europe is this basic place for our production, and I hope it won't change, because chemical industry, as Tomasz Zieliński mentioned at the beginning, is the queen of all the industries. And without that, it's hard to imagine our lives functioning. So I do believe that we will survive. How about your faith into this sector? Will we have green chemical products, or Europe is going to be a place where companies will escape from? What do you think? For sure, because the presence of chemistry in all aspects of life means that we won't be able to escape totally. But we need to look at the sense of those changes, whether it's possible to implement it, taking into account the moment that we are right now, so the crisis. But we have to look at it from a historical perspective. Even before COVID, the part of European chemistry sector in the global market was shrinking. It decreased to the benefit of China. So China became the dominant, the leader, right? Leading participant. Then, it stopped for a while, but it continued afterwards. It's not due to lack of investment or market restrictions, no, because they are on the increase. It's the result of a development of Asian markets. There was this moment in time when the sanctions on Iran were rebuked, and it was blocked. But we can see how the potential in China is developing, the pace in which they replace numerous products. So now we can look at it from different points of view, particularly European Commission that is insisting, right? We need to look at it from a realistic perspective, particularly taking into account difficult market situation. There was a panic on the market last year. We don't remember such situations. Maybe let's skip 2008 and its crisis. But the Europe that was afraid of winter, lack of energy, dark Eiffel Tower, dark Big Ben. It was an attack of panic that Europe had not experienced before to such a large extent. We were surprised, right? We were like, okay, we have electricity, right? Where is it? In the socket. For an average consumer, the products that we have related to chemistry in all aspects are there. But for them to remain, the production powers should be retained. It's hard to imagine that Europe will be the market that will only buy products. It's unimaginable. No matter what kind of scenarios we'll come up with, there are all kinds of threats, risks, but no matter what scenario we come up with, at the end of the day, we see this phenomenon that we won't be left with the European market of unemployed people. So, looking at it from a different perspective, to talk about opportunities of a sector, it means how financial sector looks at it or perceives that. No one will invest into those big investments. Banks were always functioning together with chemical industry. Chemical park, right? Related to the market of gold. PKO Bank, right? They all understand what kind of potential chemistry has. But this pressure should be lessened a little bit for the sustainability to be able to be implemented.
So, what about the banks? Are there any money for this green transition? If it comes to financing, we have been challenged with this question for a couple of years already. There's always money, but the question is, what are the circumstances under which we can act? At the beginning, we said that we've been living the last 4 years in this very turbulent period. We are facing all the time a potential crisis. Some analytics say that we are been living in this crisis all the time. But of course, we've been experiencing some trouble situations. Recently, they have been experienced also in the chemical industry, especially in the area of gas. It seems that those situations are temporary, and we shouldn't be particularly agitated and nervous about them. Money likes constant conditions. This is better for investment, certainly. So, as the president of the board said, there are investments ongoing, investments connected with the green transition. For instance, those offshore wind farms. Soon we will also have wind farms also onshore. We have investments into solar energy, and probably in 2-3 years there will be projects connected to nuclear power. So it's not something that is stopped, and certainly the banks will invest in that. That's the only direction. But we have to be wary of the possible problems that may arise on the way. We shouldn't be scared about those challenging situations. The Polish banking system should also take into account yet another issue, that that soon will be decided by the European Tribunal. And this can influence all the sectors because the banking sector may be focused only on itself. And what about the carbon footprint? Is it important already for the banking system? If it comes to carbon footprint, it seems that for the banks, at least some clients say so, this has been imposed by the banking sector. A few years ago, this process would look maybe differently, but first it started with the European banks. But today, all the banks are looking at the strategies of different companies, whether they are involved in greenwashing or if they really implement projects that should change their approach to the government, social issues, and environmental sustainability. So that's why the carbon footprint is also important for us. So we don't measure it for now, but this taxonomy is also reaching our sector. The banking will certainly consider that. So, for instance, it has been said that PKN ORLEN will change the name. We'll get rid of this oil part of the name. I would like to draw your attention to a company that produce mining equipment for farmer, which changed its name for Greenway. Yeah, it's actually a sign of contemporary times, and the bank actually had a role in changing that name. In a way, we are the regulators of the amount of money on the market, and we are also regulating the changes on the market. Now we would actually draw more attention to the manner how these changes occur. We actually let different technologies on the market, but more attention should be paid to the content in different sectors. In mining, refining, we need to look for different technologies, develop them, so that Polish companies could implement green transition. We're talking about investment, the need for changes. Should the state help the chemical industry? Do you see a need for that? Different countries were investing a lot in industry, in controlling the prices of the gas and resources. Do you see a need for support from the state in your sector? Maybe I would say that healthy concerns and companies should be quite all right. So it is not the task of the state to finance the business itself. The state should support the weakest ones, that is the citizens facing different problematic situations and hardships. But if it comes to huge companies and enterprises, like for instance BASF, they should work on their own. Whenever you get any help from the state, it means that it entails certain certain consequences. So what the state could do is actually made it easier for the investments, not just give the money. And I would like to, for instance, draw your attention to how the situation looks in Europe and in the United States. So we all agree in Europe that the green transformation is important, but sometimes we quarrel about how it should be done. And by contrast, in the United States, they've got ERA Act, and its aim is to support for the investment for interesting investments, those that make sense. And in Europe, we concentrate more on regulating. And I would like to add something to that, giving also some examples. The state can support entrepreneurs by wise planning and creation of certain ecosystems. For instance, when we are talking about recycling, which is a bit different type of activity than production of polymers from oil. In the case of recycling, we are talking about a whole system of purging and also introducing those materials, recycled materials, again to the market. This system is built together with the consumers and, of course, supported by the state. Sometimes we need the regulations that go beyond one or two enterprises, but rather create a system for the entire sector. Another example that shows that the state support is needed is taking the innovativeness risks for the undertakings that are in the preparation or preliminary phases of implementation. We see this need in the fact that the many technologies that we need and use in chemical production are the property of Asian or American companies. And unless we do not have our own technologies as Europe or in Poland, so for instance our company, PKN, ORLEN, for us all those technologies are a bit too risky yet. We want to develop in this area, but there are many challenges still. So, and in this particular area, the state support and support given to science could be certainly very beneficial. What else would you add in this area? What wishes do you have? Apart from support to the innovativeness and support in regulation? Well, certainly there are some other wishes. The list is long, but we don't have that much time. Referring to that support, we can fully agree to what the other speaker said. The support is of twofold nature. On the one hand, we can say we can divide the companies into the big ones and smaller ones. The big companies should fare quite well, but also the economic support in the case of some tax allowances or maybe financial incentives is also important. But in the case of working economy, at least 60% of the whole sector constitute small and medium enterprises. So we have to remember about that these small and medium enterprises need other type of support. It's like a financial subsidies to incentivize them to take certain actions. Or, for instance, to help them with implementing new ideas they might have. In this way, this will limit the financial risk. There have been a number of different programs in this area, and they were rather working quite well. But of course, in each economy, each state has a different level of development. And whenever the regulation is too excessive, for instance, at the level of the state, when we would actually decrease the amount of that regulation, it would be better for those companies. So we have to look more prospectively. So all those responsibilities are a great weight on the companies. It's really difficult to find such sectors, such as, for instance, the chemical industry, that would be so symbiotically linked to the society and the whole economy. So, for instance, if we actually stop one gear in this whole chemical industry, the whole sector would stop working. 12% in the Polish economy constitutes the chemical industry. If we stopped this sector by, for instance, an act, or for instance, a mistake in an act or a regulation, because of the lack of consulting with entrepreneurs, such a support, so this regulatory support, is certainly something that we have been asking for the last 10 years, since the first edition of our Congress. So we are looking for the increase of the competitiveness of our sector. We are able to face many different challenges, but certainly all the regulatory problems will be great obstacles for us. So, nearing to the end of this panel, I would wish you to, for all those wishes to be fulfilled, and thank you for the participation in this session.